Hello everyone, this is Sjctnc, Assistant Professor of English in St. Joseph's Arts and Science College Autonomous Cuddalore. In this video, we'll be discussing Unit 3, Effects of French Revolution, which elaborates the causes of the French Revolution, happenings during the Revolution, effects of French Revolution, the national debt adding to the problem of unemployment, pause of Corn Law, Anti-Corn Law League, the ripple of Corn Law, the Battle of Peterloo, about the Manchester Massacre, Reform Bill of 1832, Army and Navy becoming national institutions, and finally, how French Revolution influenced English literature. France was for years ruled by despots like Louis XIV. The kings ruled the country as they liked without caring for the good of the common people. As a result of this indifference of autocratic monarchs, there was famine and suffering all over the country. The popular upsurge against the tyranny of kings culminated in the abolition of monarchy and establishment of French Republic. This great political event of far-reaching consequences is called the French Revolution. The French Revolution started with the breaking open of the state prison Bastille on 14 July 1789. The reign of terror that followed the beheading of King Louis XVI and his queen ended only when Napoleon became emperor in May 1804. In 1793, England was forced to declare war against the French Revolution because the French revolutionary rulers offered to help all nations who wished to follow the example of French and overthrow their kings. The war continued up to the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, when Lord Wellington inflicted a crushing defeat on Napoleon. Let's discuss the causes for French Revolution. The prolonged war of 20 years had lasting effects on England. The most important immediate effect was the huge national debt. It has been estimated the cost of the war from the beginning till the end was the nation's 19 million people had to pay annually a large amount of interest. The peace that followed the war was a cause of a fall in prices of coal and iron. Many men employed in the industry were thrown out of their jobs. After the signing of the peace treaty, nearly 500,000 soldiers, sailors, and others who had been engaged directly in the war were dismissed from the active service. They added to the swelling army of the unemployed. Thus, the problem of unemployment became much more acute than before. Corn Law and Anti-Corn Law. During the 20 years of war, there was no import of European corn into England, and this caused the price of the corn to go high. But the agricultural lords stood to benefit by this. However, after the restoration of peace, the free flow of European corn was resumed, which brought down the price of English corn. This was resented by the English agriculturists, and so to protect their interest, the Corn Law was passed in 1816. This had disastrous effect on the poor. The formation of Anti-Corn Law League was this association that was ultimately responsible for the repeal of the Corn Law in 1846 by then Prime Minister Robert Peel. Battle of Peterloo. There was widespread discontent among poor people on account of various factors like low wages, high price of corn, and unemployment. There were fierce riots in many places, and the government authorities tried to put down these riots with an iron hand. In 1819, the magistrates of Manchester foolishly attempted to arrest a radical leader known as Orator Hunt at a large gathering in St. Peter's Field. On meeting with resistance from the crowd, the government officer ordered a cavalry charge upon the unarmed mob. 11 persons were killed and 600 wounded. The event, popularly called the Battle of Peterloo or the Manchester Massacre, was used by agitators to embarrass the government. To get their grievances redressed, the poor agitated for parliamentary reform, and after much opposition from the Lords, the first reform bill was passed in 1832. Battle of Trafalgar. Another effect of French Revolution was that both navy and army was recognized as national institutions. The Battle of Trafalgar, won by Lord Nelson during the Revolutionary War, highlighted the greatness of the English navy. The victory was commemorated by renaming a part of land as Trafalgar Square, where the statue of Nelson stands on a lofty column. Trafalgar Square, with its 51.5-meter column, topped by the statue of Admiral Horatio Nelson looking out to the River Thames, is one of the favorite tourist spots in London. It is the traditional end of most protest marches and rallies in the capital. With the victories of Lord Wellington at Waterloo in 1815, the army became popular as it had never been before. Barracks were built to house the troops, and the haphazard billeting of soldiers in public houses came to an end. This was done of the great relief of both the civilian population and the soldiers themselves. Reflection of French Revolution to English writers. The reflection of French Revolution was a source of inspiration to many English writers for writing some of the best known works. Thus, Edmund Burke was inspired to write his famous book Reflections on French Revolution, written in a style that is unique. Burke questions the propriety of the action of the revolutionaries in doing away with monarchy and making the National Assembly all-powerful. He expresses the opinion that defective institutions of the old regime should have been reformed and not destroyed. In reply to this was written The Rights of Man in 2 volumes by Thomas Paine. In the first part of the book, he upholds the idea that the constitution of a country is an act of the people constituting the government, and in the absence of such a written constitution, government is tyranny. Thus, Paine takes pains to justify the French Revolution and traces the circumstances leading to the declaration of the rights of man by the National Assembly. The second part of the book consists of proposals to improve the condition of Europe and England. These proposals, though considered to be too revolutionary in those days, were taken seriously, implemented by the democratic governments in various countries of the world. Notable among these proposals are a large reduction of administrative expenditure and taxation, provision for the aged poor, family allowances for the education of the poor, maternity grants, funeral grants, a graduated income tax, and limitation of armaments by treaty. Another work of literary importance, which inspired by the same political event, is a French Revolution by Thomas Carlyle. Though considered by some as a very partial view of the revolution, it is no doubt the poetic unrolling of the great historical melodrama, illustrating the nemesis that comes upon the oppression of the poor. This book also contains a gallery of magnificent pen portraits of historical figures like Mirabell and Dante. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens is yet another book which gives a true picture of Paris and London during the time of French Revolution. Finally, French Revolution ushered a new era in the history of English literature. English Romanticism should be considered as a byproduct of the great political event. Romanticism or Romantic movement started when Wordsworth and Coleridge together published the Lyrical Ballads in 1798. Wordsworth discarded the artificial style showed by the practice that beautiful poems could be written on ordinary subjects and in ordinary language. Thus, the movement as completed and was inspired by other younger poets like Byron, Shelley, and Keats. Finally, French Revolution paved a way for literature in English. Thank you.